The warning lights flashed red across the bridge of the Defiant Dawn. Captain Ji-won Kim stood calm at her station, watching the massive ships appear on the view screen. 40 warships. All of them belonged to the Kalroth Empire, and all of them were moving into attack formation. "They're surrounding us," Lieutenant Minho Park said from his position at the tactical console. His voice stayed steady, but his fingers moved quickly across the controls. 5 of our ships. 40 of theirs. Ji-won nodded slowly. She had expected this. The Kalroth were known throughout the galaxy for 2 things: their powerful military and their endless arrogance. They believed themselves superior to every other species, especially humans. Earth had only joined the galactic community 15 years ago, and species like the Kalroth still saw them as children playing with toys they didn't understand. "Communication coming in," Ensign Hyun Lee announced from her station. "It's the Kalroth Fleet Commander, Admiral Vextar." "Put him on screen," Ji-won said. The view screen changed. A massive reptilian face appeared, covered in dark green scales. Yellow eyes stared down at them with obvious contempt. Admiral Vextar's mouth pulled back, showing rows of sharp teeth in what might have been a smile. "Human vessels," the Admiral's voice rumbled through the bridge speakers. "You will stop your ships immediately. You will open your cargo bays for inspection. You will submit to Kalroth authority." Ji-won clasped her hands behind her back. "Admiral Vextar, we are in neutral space. The treaties signed by all council members, including your empire, guarantee free passage through this corridor. We have done nothing wrong." Vextar laughed. The sound was harsh and mocking. "Treaties? You speak to me of treaties? You are humans, barely civilized. You arrived in our galaxy yesterday, and you think you can quote law to the Kalroth Empire?" Around the bridge, Ji-won's crew stayed silent. They all knew the truth. They all knew what was really happening. But they also knew their orders. Stay calm, stay professional. Let the other side make the first mistake. "We request that you respect the neutral zone agreements," Ji-won said simply. On Station Nexus 7, 3 million kilometers away, Ambassador Suri Choi watched the same confrontation on a dozen screens. The station was a massive structure, a meeting place for hundreds of species. Merchants traded goods here. Diplomats held meetings. And right now, every species on the station was watching the humans face down the Kalroth fleet. "They're going to die," someone whispered behind Suri. She turned to see a small crowd gathering in the observation gallery. Aliens of every shape and size pressed against the windows, staring at the distant ships. "The Kalroth will crush them," another voice said. 5 ships against 40? "The humans are fools," Suri said nothing. She simply watched and waited. Back on the Defiant Dawn, the situation was getting worse. The Kalroth ships had completely surrounded the 5 human vessels. Energy weapons were charging. Boarding pods were being prepared. "Admiral Vextar is sending another message," Hyun said. The reptilian face appeared again, even more amused than before. "I see you refuse to cooperate. This is your last chance, humans. Surrender now, or we will take your ships by force. Your vessels are small. Your weapons are weak. You cannot possibly stand against the might of the Kalroth Empire." Minho glanced at Ji-won. She gave him a tiny nod. "Admiral," Ji-won said carefully, "I strongly advise you to reconsider this action. You are making a serious mistake." Vextar roared with laughter. Several of his bridge officers joined in. "A mistake? You threaten me? You with your tiny ships that look like merchant cargo haulers? Please, human, enlighten me. What mistake am I making?" Ji-won's expression didn't change. "You assumed we came alone." For a moment, Vexatar's laughter stopped. His yellow eyes narrowed. "What?" "You also assumed," Ji-won continued, "that our ships are what they appear to be, and you assumed that humans are weak." She leaned forward slightly. "3 assumptions, Admiral. All of them wrong." Vextar's face twisted in anger. "Enough of this. All ships prepare to fire warning shots. Show these primitives what real power looks like." Brilliant beams of energy lanced across space. They passed within meters of the Defiant Dawn's hull, close enough that the shields flickered briefly. On the station, aliens gasped. Some turned away, not wanting to watch what would happen next. Ji-won touched a control on her chair. "Hyun, open a secure channel. Priority Alpha. Channel open, Captain." "All ships," Ji-won said quietly. "This is Defiant Dawn. Protocol Nightfall. Authorization code Terra Victrix." Across the 4 other human ships, captains received the same message. In the bridge of the Silent Hammer, Commander Do-Yun Kang smiled. Finally, he muttered. It's about time. Jiwan stood up from her chair. She walked to the main view screen, staring directly at Admiral Vextar. Admiral, I gave you a chance. You fired on us. You threatened us. You called us weak and primitive. She paused. Now you'll learn the truth. What truth? Vextar snarled. That you're about to die? No, Jiwan said softly. The truth about humanity. She made a gesture to Minho. Across all 5 human ships, something changed. The hull plating, which had looked dull and worn like old merchant vessels, suddenly fell away. Beneath it, sleek military armor gleamed in the starlight. Weapons ports opened along every surface. Advanced sensor arrays extended from hidden compartments. On the station, Dr. Yunji Nam, a human scientist studying alien cultures, watched the transformation with satisfaction. There it is, she whispered. The 5 merchant ships were gone. In their place floated 5 of the most advanced warships the galaxy had ever seen. Terran Navy stealth destroyers, designed specifically for deep space operations. Each one carried enough firepower to level a small moon. Admiral Vextar stared at the screens. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. 5 warships? You think 5 ships can stand against 40? Jiwan's smile was cold. Admiral, you still don't understand. We're not here to stand against your 40 ships. She turned to Hayun. Send the signal. Signal sent, Captain. What signal? Vextar demanded. Jiwan looked directly at him through the view screen. We're not the fleet, Admiral. We're the signal flare. At that exact moment, every sensor on every ship screamed a warning. A massive gravimetric distortion appeared at the edge of the system. Space itself seemed to tear open, and through that tear ships began to emerge. 10 ships, 20, 50, 70, 70. Terran warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and at the center of them all, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even the largest Kalroth vessels. Minho read the name off his screen. The Indomitable Will, flagship of the Terran Third Fleet, Admiral Boram Shin commanding. On the station, absolute silence fell. Every alien stood frozen, staring at the impossible sight. A merchant ship captain named Toril, who had traded with humans many times, started to laugh quietly. I tried to tell them, he said to no one in particular. I tried to warn them. You don't threaten humans. You just don't. The human fleet moved with precision that seemed almost supernatural. In less than 30 seconds, 70 warships had formed a perfect sphere around the Kalroth fleet. Every weapon was aimed inward. Every shield was raised. Every ship was ready. Admiral Vextar's face had gone pale. This is impossible, our intelligence said. Your intelligence was wrong, Jiwan interrupted. Just like everything else you assumed about us. She sat back down in her chair. Now, Admiral, I believe you have a choice to make. Stand down or find out exactly what humans can do when you push us too far. The silence on the Kalroth flagship was deafening. Jiwan waited, patient as stone. Her crew waited with her. And throughout the system, every species, every ship, every station, watched to see what would happen next. The small fleet they had mocked was not so small after all. Admiral Vextar stared at the tactical display on his bridge. The numbers made no sense. The power readings coming from the human ships were far beyond anything in the Kalroth database. Each destroyer generated more energy than 3 Kalroth cruisers. And that massive dreadnought at the center of their formation, the sensors couldn't even calculate its full capacity. This must be an error, Vextar said to his weapons officer. Check the readings again. Already checked 3 times, Admiral, the officer replied, his voice shaking slightly. The readings are accurate. The human ships they're significantly more powerful than ours. Vextar's claws dug into his command chair. How is this possible? Humans were newcomers. They had barely developed faster-than-light travel 20 years ago. How could they have built ships like these? On the Defiant Dawn, Captain Jiwan Kim watched the Kalroth fleet carefully. They were confused. Good. Confusion led to caution, and caution might lead to wisdom. She hoped they would choose the peaceful path. She really did. But she was prepared for either outcome. Captain Hayun said from communications, "We're receiving a transmission from the Indomitable Will. Admiral Boram Shin wants to speak with you. Put her through to my private channel." A small screen appeared on Jiwan's chair. An older woman's face looked back at her. Admiral Boram Shin had gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent. Scars crossed her left cheek, souvenirs from the colony wars of Earth's past. Captain Kim, Admiral Shin said, "Status report. The Calroth fleet fired warning shots at us, Admiral. They demanded we surrender our ships for inspection. When we refused and revealed our true nature, they seemed surprised." Shin's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. "I imagine they did. The Calroth have been bullying smaller species for decades. It's about time someone reminded them that size isn't everything." She paused. "I'm opening a channel to their Admiral. Let's see if we can end this without violence." "Understood, Admiral." The view screen changed again. This time, Admiral Shin's face appeared next to Admiral Vextar's. The contrast was striking. The massive reptilian warrior looked down at the small human woman. If he expected her to be intimidated, he was disappointed. "Admiral Vextar," Shin said calmly, "I am Admiral Boram Shin of the Terran Third Fleet. You have threatened our ships in neutral space. You have fired weapons near our vessels. These are acts of aggression according to galactic law." Vextar recovered some of his composure. "Your ships were disguised. That is deception. We had every right to investigate." "Our ships were using legal camouflage technology," Shin replied. "Nothing in galactic law prohibits defensive measures. You, however, fired weapons first. That makes you the aggressor." 70 ships, Vextar said, his voice hard. "You brought 70 warships to neutral space. That is a fleet action. An invasion force." Shin shook her head. "We brought a response force. There's a difference. We detected your fleet movements 3 days ago. When we calculated your trajectory would intersect with our vessels, we prepared accordingly." She leaned forward. "Now I'm going to give you one chance, Admiral. One chance to withdraw peacefully. Power down your weapons. Back away from our ships. Leave this system. Do this and we'll consider the matter closed." Vextar's eyes blazed with anger. "You think you can threaten the Calroth Empire? We have hundreds of ships. Thousands. You are one small fleet. One small fleet that completely surrounded your 40 ships in under 30 seconds, Shin said quietly. One small fleet whose weapons are currently locked onto every vessel you command. One small fleet that could end this fight before you even realized it started." She paused. "But we don't want to fight, Admiral. We want peace. The choice is yours." On Station Nexus 7, the crowd in the observation gallery had grown massive. Hundreds of beings watched the confrontation. Dr. Yoonji Nam stood among them, recording everything for her research. The tension was unbearable. "He won't back down," someone said. "The Calroth never back down. It's a cultural thing. Retreat means dishonor." "Then they're going to die," another voice replied. Yoonji kept watching. She had studied human military history extensively. She knew something these other species didn't understand. Humans had fought wars for thousands of years. They had learned hard lessons. They knew when to talk and when to act. And when they acted, they did so with terrible efficiency. Admiral Vextar made his decision. "All ships," he commanded. "Target the human flagship. Full weapons spread. Fire on my mark." "Admiral, no," one of his officers shouted. "Our shields won't fire." 40 Calroth warships opened fire simultaneously. Brilliant beams of energy, plasma torpedoes, and kinetic missiles screamed across space. It was enough firepower to destroy a small planet. All of it converged on the indomitable will. On the human dreadnought's bridge, the weapons officer looked at Admiral Shin. "Incoming fire, Admiral. Multiple vectors. Hold position," Shin said calmly. "Shields at maximum. Let them see the weapons hit." Light exploded across the void. The energy release was so intense that several alien species on the station had to shield their eyes. The blast continued for 10 full seconds. When the light finally faded, everyone waited to see the damage. The indomitable will floated exactly where it had been, not a single scratch on its hull. The shields hadn't even flickered. Complete silence filled the communication channels. Admiral Vextar stared at his screens in absolute disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "Nothing can withstand that much firepower." Admiral Shin's voice came through, still perfectly calm. "Your weapons are based on plasma acceleration technology. We've been using that for 30 years. We've also been developing defenses against it for 30 years. She sighed. "Admiral Vextar, you have now committed an act of war against the Terran Federation. However, I am still authorized to offer you one final chance. Surrender immediately or face the consequences." "Never," Vextar roared. "Calroth warriors, do not surrender. All ships prepare for close combat. Ram them if you must." Admiral Shin closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, they were cold as ice. Very well. All ships, Protocol 7. Disable, don't destroy. I want minimal casualties. Acknowledged, came the replies from 70 ships. G1 watched from the defiant dawn as the human fleet acted. What happened next would be studied in military academies for decades. The Terran ships didn't use conventional weapons. Instead, they deployed electromagnetic pulse cannons, specifically designed to shut down enemy vessels without killing the crew. Precise beams of focused energy lanced out from the human ships. Each beam hit a specific target on the Calroth vessels, their primary power cores. The technology was so advanced, so carefully calibrated, that it could disable a ship's power systems without harming the crew inside. In 47 seconds, 38 Calroth warships went dark. Their lights died. Their engines stopped. Their weapons powered down. They floated helplessly in space, completely disabled but with every crew member alive and unharmed. Only 2 Calroth ships remained active: Admiral Vextar's flagship and 1 escort cruiser. The Admiral stared at his screens in horror. His entire fleet disabled in less than a minute, and the human ships hadn't even used their main weapons. "This is impossible," he said again. How did you?" "The Calroth Empire has been the dominant military power in this sector for 200 years, Admiral Shin said. "You stopped innovating. You stopped improving. You assumed your strength would last forever." Her voice was harsh now. "Humanity learned long ago that you must always grow stronger, or someone stronger will defeat you. We never stopped developing. We never stopped training. We never stopped preparing for the day someone would challenge us." The last escort cruiser suddenly powered down its weapons. The captain transmitted a surrender signal. That left only Vextar's flagship. "Admiral," one of Vextar's officers said quietly, "we should surrender. We're defeated. There's no shame in silence," Vextar screamed. But even as he shouted, he knew the truth. He had lost. Completely and utterly lost. His fleet was disabled. His reputation was destroyed. And worst of all, he had learned that the species he mocked, the humans he called primitive, were far more advanced than the Calroth had ever been. Slowly, with claws shaking, Admiral Vextar reached for the communications controls. "This is Admiral Vextar of the Calroth Empire. I surrender." "My fleet surrenders." Admiral Shin nodded. "Wise decision, Admiral. All Calroth vessels will be boarded by Terran Marines. Your crews will be treated fairly, and returned to your empire once diplomatic channels are opened. Your ships will be repaired and returned as well. We are not conquerors, Admiral. We are defenders. Remember that." G1 watched as boarding ships launched from the human fleet. Captain Jiho Song led the Marine teams. They would secure the disabled vessels and ensure the Calroth crews were safe. It was over. The battle that never really started had ended. On the station, the observation gallery erupted in noise. Aliens shouted and argued and questioned everything they thought they knew. Dr. Yoonji Nam simply smiled and made a note in her research log. Today, the galaxy learned a new lesson. Never judge a species by how long they've been traveling the stars. Judge them by what they've overcome to get here. The small fleet they mocked had proven to be far more than anyone expected. Captain Jiho Song stepped through the airlock onto Admiral Vexitar's flagship. Behind him, 20 Terran Marines moved in perfect formation. Their armor was light but strong, their weapons held ready but not threatening. They had trained for situations exactly like this. The Calroth crew waited in the main corridor. Jiho could see fear in their eyes. They expected violence. They expected revenge for attacking the human fleet. After all, that's what the Calroth would have done if their positions were reversed. "I am Captain Jiho Song," he announced. "Terran Federation Marines. We are here to secure this vessel and ensure the safety of all crew members. You will not be harmed if you cooperate." A Calroth officer, smaller than Admiral Vextar but still massive compared to the humans, stepped forward. You're not going to kill us?" Jiho tilted his head, genuinely confused. "Why would we kill you? You surrendered. The fight is over. But we attacked you. We tried to destroy your ships." "Yes, you did," Jiho agreed. "And you failed. That doesn't mean we're going to murder surrendered enemies. What kind of species do you think we are?" The Calroth officer had no answer. Around him, the crew exchanged glances of confusion and relief. This wasn't what they expected at all. Over the next hour, Jiho's team moved through the ship. They checked life support systems. They examined the damaged power cores. They made sure the emergency systems were functioning. On every deck, Calroth warriors watched in amazement as the humans who had defeated them worked to keep them alive. On the bridge, Admiral Vextar sat slumped in his command chair. His career was over. His reputation destroyed. When Admiral Shin requested to board his ship personally, he almost refused. But what was the point? He had lost everything already. Admiral Borum Shin arrived with a small escort. She walked onto the bridge and looked around carefully. Then she approached Vexitar directly. "Admiral," she said, "we need to talk." Vextar looked up at her. "What is there to say?" "You won, I lost. The great Calroth fleet defeated by humans." He laughed bitterly. "My people will never forgive this shame." Shin pulled up a chair and sat down, facing him at eye level. "Admiral, let me tell you something about humans. A few hundred years ago, my ancestors were at war. Constant, terrible war. Nations fought nations. People killed people. It seemed like the violence would never end." She paused. "Do you know what finally stopped it?" Vextar said nothing. Someone realized that making enemies wasn't sustainable. That constant fighting only led to more fighting. So we changed. We learned to talk instead of shoot. We learned to compromise instead of conquer. It wasn't easy. It took generations. But we did it. She leaned forward. "You attacked us because your culture sees surrender as weakness. But true strength isn't refusing to back down. True strength is knowing when to stop fighting." "You lecture me?" Vextar growled. "You who just humiliated the entire Calroth Empire?" "I'm trying to help you," Shin said quietly. "Your empire has been the strongest military power in this region for 2 centuries. But strength without wisdom is just violence waiting to happen. You could have left us alone. You could have respected the neutral zone. Instead, you attacked because you assumed we were weak." She stood up. "The Calroth Empire needs to learn the same lesson humanity learned. Being strong doesn't mean you have to prove it constantly. Real power is having strength and choosing not to use it unnecessarily." She walked to the viewport, looking out at the disabled Calroth fleet. "We're going to repair your ships, Admiral. We're going to restore power to every vessel. And then we're going to escort you back to the border of Calroth space. We'll provide medical care for anyone who needs it. We'll even replace the supplies you used in your attack, and we won't ask for anything in return." Vextar stood up slowly. "Why? Why show mercy to those who attacked you?" Admiral Shin turned to face him. "Because we remember what it was like to be defeated. We remember the wars that nearly destroyed us, and we promised ourselves that when we became strong enough to show mercy, we would, every time." She walked toward the exit. "Think about that, Admiral. Think about what kind of species chooses mercy when they could choose revenge." On Station Nexus 7, the diplomatic situation was becoming complicated. Ambassador Suri Choi sat in an emergency council meeting with representatives from a dozen species. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What were humanity's intentions? "The humans just disabled an entire Calroth fleet," a Vendry merchant said nervously. "That's more firepower than the combined forces of 5 systems. Should we be afraid?" Suri shook her head. "We didn't come here to conquer. We came here to trade and explore. The Calroth attacked us. We defended ourselves. That's all, that's all," an Axian counselor demanded. "You brought 70 warships." "We brought 70 warships after detecting a Calroth fleet moving toward our vessels," Suri corrected. "Would you prefer we sent our people into danger without support?" The arguments continued for hours, but gradually a pattern emerged. The species that had been bullied by the Calroth before were quietly pleased. The species that feared human military power were nervous but couldn't deny that humanity had acted in self-defense. And everyone agreed on one thing: the galaxy had changed today. Dr. Yoonji Nam watched the council session from the observation gallery. She was analyzing everything, recording every reaction. As a xenoanthropologist, this was the most important moment of her career. First contact had been years ago, but this was first conflict. How humanity handled this would define their reputation for generations. Later, she interviewed several aliens who had witnessed the confrontation. Their responses were fascinating. A young Vendry named Toral, who captained a merchant ship, said, "I've traded with humans for 3 years now. They're always fair, always honest. They never cheat on prices, never threaten. When I heard the Calroth were going to attack them, I tried to warn the Calroth. I told them they were making a mistake. They laughed at me. He shook his head. They're not laughing now, an Axian observer said. The precision was terrifying. 47 seconds to disable 38 warships, and they didn't kill a single person. That's not just advanced technology. That's doctrine. That's training. That's a military culture that values control over destruction. I don't know whether to be impressed or frightened. A Calroth merchant, one of the few on the station, spoke carefully. My people have been warriors for 1,000 years. We pride ourselves on strength and honor. But watching that battle, if you can call it a battle, I realized something. We've confused strength with aggression. The humans are stronger than us, but they showed restraint. That's real strength. That's real honor. I hope my empire learns this lesson. Back on the Defiant Dawn, Captain Ji-won Kim was writing her report for Earth Command. Minho sat at his station nearby reviewing tactical data. Captain, he said suddenly, I've been analyzing the Calroth weapons. Their plasma cannons are actually very advanced. Maybe not as advanced as ours, but still impressive. If they had focused their fire on one of our destroyers instead of the Indomitable Will, they might have done some damage. Ji-won looked up from her report. Would we have been in danger? No, Minho admitted. Our shields are still far superior. But it would have been a fight instead of a demonstration. He paused. Do you think we were right to disable them instead of destroying them? Do you think we should have killed them? Ji-won asked back. Minho considered the question carefully. No, but I wonder if showing mercy will be seen as weakness. Perhaps by some, Ji-won said. But the species who matter, the ones who want peace instead of war, they'll understand. We showed that humanity is strong enough to win and wise enough to show mercy. That's the reputation we want. Hyun turned from her station. Captain, we're receiving messages from all over the system. Other ships want to know if they can resume normal operations. Some are asking if humans are taking control of the neutral zone. Ji-won smiled. Tell them neutral space remains neutral. We're not here to rule anyone. We're here to trade, explore, and defend ourselves when necessary. Any ship that respects those principles has nothing to fear from humanity. 3 days later, the Calroth fleet was ready to depart. Their power cores had been repaired. Their supplies had been restocked. Medical teams had treated minor injuries. The Terran fleet had kept its word completely. Admiral Vextar stood on his bridge one final time before departure. A communication screen showed Admiral Shin. Admiral Vextar, she said, your ships are ready. You're free to return home. I don't understand you, Vextar said quietly. We attacked you. We tried to destroy you. Yet you repair our ships and send us home safely. Why? Admiral Shin smiled. Because that's what humans do, Admiral. We fight when we must. We defend what needs defending. But we never forget that our enemies are still people. Still lives. Still worthy of respect, she paused. I hope you'll remember this when you return to your empire. I hope you'll tell them what really happened here. They won't believe me, Vextar said. They'll say I'm making excuses for my defeat. Then show them the recordings. Show them the evidence. Let them see the truth. Shin's expression grew serious. The galaxy is changing, Admiral. Humanity is here now. We're not going away. The Calroth Empire can choose to be our enemy, or it can choose to learn from this experience. The choice belongs to your people. The Galactic Council chamber was filled with representatives from 43 species. Ambassador Yuna Han sat in the human delegation section, watching as the Calroth Empire's representative approached the central podium. The massive reptilian carried himself with obvious discomfort. His people had been humiliated, and now he had to face the consequences. The Calroth Empire demands justice, the representative declared. His voice echoed through the chamber. The humans brought military forces into neutral space. They attacked our fleet. They damaged our ships. This is an act of aggression that cannot stand. Yuna waited patiently. She had expected this. The Calroth couldn't admit weakness, so they tried to turn their defeat into a political victory. It was predictable. It was also doomed to fail. Chancellor Thexval of the Valorn Union rose from his seat. The Valorn were ancient beings, tall and thin with silver skin that seemed to glow slightly in the chamber's light. They had been members of the galactic community for thousands of years. I have reviewed the evidence, Thexval said. His voice was calm and measured. The recordings show clearly that the Calroth fleet fired first. The humans only revealed their military ships after being threatened. And the Calroth fleet, not the humans, initiated combat. He turned to look directly at the Calroth representative. Perhaps you should explain why your fleet was in neutral space with weapons charged in the first place. The Calroth representative's scales darkened with anger. We have the right to patrol trade routes. Pirates operate in that region. Pirates? A new voice spoke up. A Vendry merchant stood, his small frame contrasting with the larger species around him. I have traveled those routes for 20 years. The only threat to peaceful traders has been Calroth inspections that conveniently result in confiscated cargo and forced tariffs. Another voice joined in. Then another. Within minutes, a dozen species were sharing stories of Calroth aggression. Ships boarded without cause, cargo seized, crews intimidated. The stories painted a clear picture. The Calroth had been bullying weaker species for decades, and everyone knew it. Una finally stood. May I speak? The council speaker, an elderly Axion with gray feathers, gestured permission. The human representative may address the council. Una walked to the central podium. She carried a data tablet with her. I will make this simple. The humans were in neutral space as allowed by treaty. The Calroth approached with weapons ready as shown in these sensor logs. She transmitted the data to every representative. The Calroth demanded surrender without legal cause. The humans refused. The Calroth fired weapons at human vessels. The humans defended themselves. She paused, letting the evidence speak for itself. The humans disabled the Calroth fleet with non-lethal weapons. 0 casualties, 0 deaths. Then, instead of demanding surrender or tribute, the humans repaired the damaged ships. They provided medical care, they restocked supplies, and they escorted the Calroth fleet safely back to their own space. She looked around the chamber. Does this sound like an aggressive species to you? The silence was telling. Even species that might have feared human military power couldn't deny the facts. Humanity had shown both strength and restraint. That combination was rare in the galaxy. The Calroth representative tried one last argument. The humans hid their military ships. That is deception. Chancellor Thexval made a sound that might have been a laugh. The Calroth object to ships using defensive camouflage. How interesting. Perhaps they would like to discuss the 3 Calroth intelligence vessels currently operating under false transponders near Velorn space. The Calroth representative's mouth snapped shut. The council vote was swift. The Calroth Empire was found to be at fault. Sanctions were imposed. Restricted access to certain trade routes, mandatory reporting of fleet movements, and a formal apology to the human delegation. The Calroth representative left the chamber in disgrace. Afterward, Chancellor Thexval approached Una privately. Ambassador Han, the Velorn Union would like to discuss a defensive pact with humanity. Una raised her eyebrows. A formal alliance? Not immediately, Thexval said carefully. But perhaps joint patrols, shared intelligence, cooperative defense agreements. The Velorn Union has watched humanity carefully since your arrival in galactic society. You are young, yes, but you show wisdom, you show restraint. These are rare qualities. We appreciate the offer, Una said. I'll forward it to Earth for consideration. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, news of the confrontation spread rapidly. Captain Sujin Oh, a Terran intelligence officer, monitored the reactions from a secure facility on Earth. The data was fascinating. 17 species had submitted formal requests for trade negotiations with humanity. 8 species had requested meetings to discuss security cooperation. 3 species had asked about purchasing human defensive technology. And 6 species had quietly inquired about whether humanity would be interested in helping them stand up to aggressive neighbors. Sujin compiled all the information into a report for Earth Command. Her conclusion was simple. Humanity's reputation had fundamentally changed. Before, they were newcomers. Interesting, but not important. Now they were players. Real players with real power. But some reactions concerned her. 3 militaristic empires had begun increasing weapons production. They viewed humanity as a threat. Their intelligence operations were probing for weaknesses. Sujin flagged these species for additional monitoring. On Station Nexus 7, life slowly returned to normal. The merchant lanes reopened. Trade resumed. But something had changed. Captain Toril, the Vendry merchant, noticed it immediately. Ships that used to pay the Calroth inspection fees now refused. When Calroth vessels appeared in the trade lanes, other ships would simply transmit, "Human Protection Treaty pending." Most times, the Calroth left immediately. The threat of human intervention was enough. Toril mentioned this to Dr. Yoonji Nam during one of her interviews. It's like the entire dynamic shifted overnight, he said. The Kalroth were the biggest threat out here. Now they're afraid. And everyone else is asking the same question. What question? Yoonji asked. Will the humans protect us too? Yoonji considered that carefully. It was exactly what her research had been exploring. What do you think humanity should do? Toril laughed. I'm a merchant, not a politician. But I'll tell you this. If humans start offering protection to peaceful traders, half the species in this sector will sign up. The Kalroth aren't the only bullies out here. There are pirates, raiders, and 3 or 4 empires that think might makes right. He paused. Your people showed they have might. The question is, what will you do with it? That question echoed through many conversations. On Earth, Admiral Hyun Kwan faced it directly during a meeting with the Joint Defense Council. We have requests for protection from 11 different species, Admiral Kwan reported. They want us to patrol their trade routes, escort their cargo ships, defend their stations. Can we do it? The council chair asked. Militarily? Yes, we have the ships and the personnel. Kwan pulled up a star map. But that's not really the question. The question is, should we become the galaxy's police force? The debate lasted hours. Some argued humanity should stay focused on Earth's interests. Others said helping weaker species was the right thing to do. Some worried about overextending their forces. Others worried about refusing help and appearing cold. Finally, Admiral Kwan proposed a compromise. We don't become the police, but we do become the example. We create cooperative defense agreements with species that want protection. We patrol jointly with their forces. We train their people. We share technology within reason. We don't defend them. We help them defend themselves. The proposal was accepted. Within weeks, the first joint patrol was announced. 2 Terran destroyers would patrol with 3 Vendry defense ships in the trade corridor near Station Nexus 7. It was a small step, but it was a beginning. Captain Ji-won Kim received new orders. The Defiant Dawn and 4 other ships would form the core of the first Joint Defense Fleet. She would work with alien crews, train with alien commanders, build relationships with alien species. It's what we wanted, Minho said as they reviewed the orders, to be part of the galactic community. It's more than that, Ji-won replied. We're shaping what that community becomes. The Kalroth showed everyone what happens when the strong dominate the weak. We're showing them there's another way. Hayun looked up from her station. Captain, we're receiving a message from Admiral Vextar's second officer. He's requesting permission to attend our joint training exercises. Ji-won smiled. The Kalroth want to train with us? Apparently some of their younger officers are pushing for military reform. They want to learn our methods, our tactics, our philosophy. Grant the request, Ji-won decided. If they want to learn, we should teach them. Change doesn't happen overnight, but it has to start somewhere. Back on Station Nexus 7, Dr. Yoonji Nam prepared to publish her research. She had interviewed hundreds of beings, analyzed thousands of reactions, studied the political and social changes spreading through the sector. Her conclusion was simple but profound. Humanity entered the galactic stage at a critical moment. The old powers had become comfortable. They maintained order through fear and force. Humanity demonstrated that real power comes from the ability to show restraint. 6 months had passed since the confrontation. Captain Ji-won Kim stood on the observation deck of Station Nexus 7, watching ships move through the trade lanes. Terran destroyers patrolled alongside vessels from 6 different species. It was a sight that would have been impossible just half a year ago. Penny, for your thoughts? A voice said behind her. Ji-won turned to see Captain Ji-ho-song approaching. The Marine commander looked more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. His training program with alien forces had been remarkably successful. Just thinking about how much has changed, Ji-won said. Remember when we first arrived here? 5 ships alone in hostile space, Ji-ho laughed. I remember Admiral Vextar's face when our fleet arrived. That was worth the whole mission. Have you heard from any of your Kalroth students? Actually, yes. Ji-ho pulled up a data tablet. Young officer named Kexval. He's been requesting more training materials. Says he wants to reform his empire's military doctrine. Apparently, he's not alone. There's a whole group of younger Kalroth officers pushing for change. Ji-won raised her eyebrows. Will they succeed? Maybe, maybe not. But the fact they're trying means something. On Earth, Admiral Hyun Kwan sat in a meeting with representatives from the Valorn Union, the Vendry Collective, and 3 other allied species. They were finalizing the Treaty of Cooperative Defense, a formal alliance structure that would reshape galactic politics. The Terran Federation proposes joint command structures, Admiral Kwan explained. No single species controls the alliance fleet. Decisions are made by consensus. Each member contributes ships and resources based on their capacity. Chancellor Thexaval nodded approvingly. This is acceptable to the Valorn Union. We have seen how humans work with others. You do not dominate. You cooperate. A Vendry representative spoke up. My people are small. We cannot contribute large warships, but we have excellent communication technology. Perhaps that could be our contribution? Every contribution matters, Kwan assured him. We're building an alliance, not an empire. Everyone brings what they can. The treaty was signed that day. The first cooperative defense fleet was officially formed. It wasn't the largest military force in the galaxy, but it was based on principles instead of power, and that made it something new. Back on Station Nexus 7, Dr. Yoonji Nam was conducting another round of interviews. The response to her research had been overwhelming. Scientists from dozens of species wanted to collaborate with her. She was becoming famous, though she found that slightly uncomfortable. Dr. Nam, what do you think will happen next? A young Axian researcher asked her. Yoonji considered the question carefully. I think we're seeing the beginning of a shift. The old galactic order was based on dominant powers controlling their regions through force. The Kalroth in their sector, others elsewhere. That system worked for centuries, but it was inherently unstable. It relied on fear. She paused. Humanity offered something different. Not control, but cooperation. Not domination, but mutual defense. That's appealing to a lot of species. But surely not everyone is happy about this. No, Yoonji admitted. Some of the old powers see humanity as a threat. They're not wrong to worry. If enough species join the cooperative model, the traditional empire model becomes obsolete. Change is always threatening to those who benefit from the status quo. The young researcher nodded thoughtfully. Do you think there will be war? I hope not. But I'm a scientist, not a fortune teller. All I can do is observe and report. Meanwhile, the Defiant Dawn and its crew had been promoted to a new role. Commodore Jiwon Kim now commanded a full exploration group, 10 ships from 4 different species. Their mission was to explore uncharted regions and establish first contact with new civilizations. Lieutenant Commander Minho Park, now her executive officer, was helping coordinate the multinational crew. It wasn't always easy. Different species had different communication styles, different hierarchies, different expectations. But they were making it work. Commodore, Minho reported one day, we've received a distress signal from an unknown species. They're requesting help with what seems to be a natural disaster on their homeworld. Jiwon reviewed the data. It's outside our patrol zone. We have no obligation to respond. True, Minho agreed. But they're asking for help. Jiwon smiled. Then we help. That's what we do now, isn't it? Set course for their system. Alert all ships. We respond as a unified fleet. The rescue operation took 3 days. A volcanic event had threatened one of the planet's major cities. The exploration fleet helped evacuate civilians, stabilized structures with force fields, and provided medical care. The new species, calling themselves the Terran, were amazed at the rapid response. You came to help us, a Terran leader said to Jiwon. But you don't know us. We have nothing to offer in trade. Why would you do this? Jiwon thought about how to answer. Because someone in trouble asked for help. That's reason enough. The Terran joined the Cooperative Defense Network 3 months later. They brought with them advanced mining technology and a strong work ethic. They also brought stories about the humans who helped them without asking for anything in return. The reputation grew. Captain Sujino continued monitoring galactic reactions from Earth. Her latest report showed interesting trends. Piracy in cooperative space had dropped by 73%. Trade volume was up 42%, and the number of aggressive incidents between species in cooperative territory had fallen to almost 0. The data is clear, she told Admiral Kwan. The cooperative model is working. Species feel safer. They trade more. They fight less. It's exactly what we hoped for. What about the opposition? Kwan asked. 3 empires are actively hostile to us. 2 more are uncertain. But most species are either neutral or positive. Sujin pulled up a star map. The interesting part is this. Several species from the hostile empires are secretly requesting meetings with us. Their governments might oppose cooperation, but their people see the benefits. That could lead to internal conflicts in those empires. It could, Sujin agreed, but we can't control what other species do. We can only control our own actions and hope they lead to positive change. On a training station near Terran space, Captain Jiho Song watched Kexavol lead a squad of mixed-species Marines through a simulation. The young Kalroth officer had improved dramatically. More importantly, he understood the philosophy behind human military doctrine. After the exercise, Jiho called him over. "Kexavol, you're ready to return to your empire." The Kalroth officer's expression was conflicted. "I don't know if they'll accept what I've learned. Many of my people still believe strength means domination." "Some will resist," Jiho agreed, "but others will listen. Change starts with individuals. You can't reform an entire empire alone, but you can influence those around you. Train them the way we trained you. Teach them what you've learned. Eventually, enough individuals become a movement." Kexavol nodded slowly. "Admiral Vexistar has been quietly supporting our group. He never admitted his defeat publicly, but privately he tells us the truth. He says the Kalroth must evolve or become irrelevant." "Then you have a chance," Jiho said. "Use it well." Ambassador Yuna Han sat in her office at the Galactic Council building, reviewing the latest developments. The Cooperative Defense Treaty was now signed by 19 species. 3 more were in negotiations. The old galactic order was fracturing, replaced by something new and unpredictable. A message arrived from Earth. Ambassador Suri Choi was being promoted to the Galactic Council's human representative. Yuna would become the primary negotiator for alliance expansion. It was a huge responsibility. She accepted the position without hesitation. This was what humanity had worked toward. Not domination, not isolation, but active, positive engagement with the galactic community. 1 year after the initial confrontation, a ceremony was held on Station Nexus 7. A monument was unveiled in the central plaza. It showed 5 ships, small but determined, facing a much larger fleet. The inscription read, "Here, the small stood against the mighty. Here, mercy defeated arrogance. Here, a new future began." Representatives from 37 species attended. Admiral Vextar was among them, standing quietly at the back of the crowd. When someone recognized him and asked why he came, his answer was simple: "To remember. To ensure I never forget the lesson I learned here." Commodore Ji-won Kim gave a speech at the ceremony. She kept it brief. "A year ago, 5 human ships were threatened in this system. We were mocked. We were underestimated. We were attacked." She paused. "We could have responded with overwhelming force. We could have destroyed our attackers. We could have claimed dominance through fear. Instead, we chose a different path. We showed strength tempered with wisdom, power combined with mercy, and we proved that the strong have a responsibility to protect, not dominate." She looked out at the diverse crowd. That confrontation was a turning point. Not because of what we destroyed, but because of what we built afterward. Cooperation instead of conquest. Alliance instead of empire. A future where strength serves justice instead of ambition. The crowd erupted in approval. Species that had never worked together now stood side by side, united by shared principles. Admiral Hyun Kwan watched the ceremony from Earth via live feed. He pulled up a star map showing humanity's expanded influence. It spread across dozens of systems,